Hulk Hogan is in the news at the moment. Whether it's his return to the WWE or whatever he's teasing for 2018 in general, the Hulkster is back in the wrestling fold. Whether this is right or wrong is a debate taking place around the globe, and it's certainly a difficult situation. Some would say it would have been better if he had just taken his bandana and gone home, but that was never going to happen. As the Immortal One is making headlines though, why don't we take a seat, get the kettle on, pour a nice drink, and remind ourselves of things that the real name Terry Bollea would rather we didn't remember. I'm Simon from WhatCulture, and this is 10 Things WWE wants you to forget about Hulk Hogan. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to stay notified. Ding, ding, done. Number 10, the Huckster. Yeah, you heard it right. Isn't that funny when we're talking about a parody version of Hulk Hogan? Of course it is. And WWE agreed when in 1996 they responded to Hogan and Randy Savage finding new success in WCW by acting like children and coming up with joke versions of the pair. If you're interested, Randy was called the Nacho Man. These skits started in the lead up to WrestleMania 12 and showed two old people hamming it up and pretending to be their more famous counterparts. In case you can't figure it out, the message was simple. If you were watching World Championship Wrestling, you were tuning into performers who were past it, whereas here in the WWE, fresh-faced new talent were about to tear up the scene and change the planet. At the time, Vince McMahon was desperate for everyone to watch these and fool around laughing. When Hogan came back in 2002, he probably would have rathered we never mentioned them again, especially when he made the call to make Hulk champion. What a difference 6 years can make. Number 9, his failed 93 return. Talking about how quickly things can change, just a few years prior to this, the WWE decided to beg Hogan to return and put the title on him once again at WrestleMania 9. Not only was the booking of this nuts, but it was done with the full knowledge that it would screw over Bret Hart and Yokozuna, who were both slowly being pushed. It didn't work, and Hulk had left again by the summer. Whoops! Without context, WWE would like to pretend this is one of those moments that is fondly remembered in its history, but that's just not true. Hogan failed to recapture the magic of before, and fans weren't entirely happy going back to something we'd done over and over again. Like anything in life, Hogan's time as it was had come and gone. The audience were into guys like the Hitman and had come around to the work ethic of champions such as Ric Flair, and Hogan didn't suit that remit. He was far from done, of course, but this was just the wrong decision and left this particular main event in infamy. Number 8, WCW reinvented him when WWE couldn't. I just mentioned that Hogan's time had come and gone as it was, but that didn't mean he still didn't have something to offer. As it turned out, he had a ton of gas left in the tank. He just had to go to WCW to find this. Although World Championship Wrestling went back to the same well when Hulk first arrived in 1994, it was obvious pretty quickly that the red and yellow superhero act was stale even down south. The business was changing and people wanted something new. What was a good way to tap into that? Simple. Turn Hulk Hogan heel. Spewing from the mind of Eric Bischoff in 1996, he saw money in taking the most famous man in wrestling, teaming in with two other former WWE guys, and that would be Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, and creating the NWO, a faction that could run rampant throughout the promotion, and it changed everything. On the 6th of June of that year, Nitro beat Raw in the rating for the very first time, and it was the start of 83 weeks of ass kicking. It was quite the sight to see too. Here was Hogan, a once loyal McMahon trooper, playing a huge role in making WWE the number 2 company. Whether WWE likes it or not, it was WCW that prolonged Hulk's career, and that was something in the mid-90s they just weren't able to do. Number 7, the 2002 Undertaker Feud. By and large, most people feel like the NWO reboot in WWE failed. It didn't have the same impact as it had a few years prior and lost its way. However, Hogan himself managed to find some true iconic moments, especially during that match with The Rock at WrestleMania 18. Never forget just how much fans wanted that Hulkamania nostalgia from that point onwards, even when he won the Undisputed title from Triple H a month later. Make no mistake about it, Hogan was hot again. And then he clashed with The Undertaker. Now, I will say I didn't mind this because it was so surreal to see these two icons back in the ring once more, but it was also when Hogan's weaknesses were more exposed than anyone would have liked. Trying to stave off niggling injuries and justify his position on top, there were a bunch of bizarre segments involving motorcycles and that lackluster match at Judgment Day. It popped the bubble and made everyone think that maybe whatever this wasn't going to last that long. By the time Taker went to chokeslam Hulk, he was struggling to jump, and then he lost the match, and he lost his title. Wasn't really his fault, can only do so much at that age, but still, don't even think about it now. Number 6, Mr. America. According to Bruce Pritchard on his podcast, Vince McMahon didn't get the Mr. America character because, much like the audience, even the boss could see that putting Hulk Hogan in a mask and pretending he was someone else was stupid. It was the kind of nonsense WWE would have laughed at WCW for doing. It didn't fool anybody, which wasn't the point, but that still made the commentators sound stupid for pretending otherwise, and it flat out tanked. Months later, Hulk was gone again. Reportedly unhappy with his Mania payoff, Hogan decided to take his leave before a planned mask versus hair match at a New Look Great American Bash. That'd have been ridiculous. Maybe all this was for the best. Number 5, Shawn Michaels mocking his moves. When it was time for the Hulkster to step back into the spotlight, he did so at SummerSlam in 2005. Months after being inducted into the Hall of Fame before WrestleMania 21, Hogan went one-on-one with HBK and, of course, beat him clean. All of that was for naught though, because no one remembers anything other than Michaels trolling the hell out of Hulkamania. If it wasn't clear that Shawn wasn't happy about all of this, you just need to watch the match. He's not taking any of it seriously in the slightest. It was an interesting clash, mind, and one that fans wanted to see. They had the star of the 80s against one of their most cherished workhorses of the 90s, the latter of which had managed a stunning comeback from injury. It had to happen, but WWE probably wishes Hogan had been more open to ideas and that Michaels didn't take such liberties. His overselling made a mockery of Hulk's trademark arsenal, had people in the front rows giggling themselves silly, and clearly flustered Hogan too. This was not the epic it was meant to be, and instead, a lovely little footnote when you look back on it. Number 4, his entire acting career. Who am I to take shots at Hulk Hogan's acting career? My movie total so far is 0, but I also never made Mr. Nanny, so I kind of feel like we're on the same level to some degree. Because I'm an idiot though, I actually enjoyed a lot of what the Hulkster did on the silver screen. No Holds Barred was ridiculous, Suburban Commando was nonsense, and the aforementioned movie when Hogan dressed up in pink tights was just weird. Then I think we can all agree that as Thunder Lips in Rocky 3, well, that was just good all round. This is coming from a bedded-in wrestling fan, however, and the general public didn't seem to have a clue what to make of this, because analysing the box office for Hulk's movies is fascinating. Mr. Nanny had a $10 million budget and only drew $4.3 million at the gate. By the same token, Suburban Commando's $11 million budget was let down by an $8 million draw at theatres. The less said about 1996's Santas with Muscles, the better, because that pulled just $220,000 at the box office. Oh boy. Number 3 is personal struggles. Now this one actually sucks as far as I'm concerned. It's true that WWE would rather not talk about what happened with Hulk Hogan in 2009, as his son Nick was given an 8-month prison sentence following a nasty car crash that killed his friend, while at the same time Hogan's relationship with his wife Linda was also falling to pieces. By the end of the year, things had all become too much for a wrestling legend. This is all awful, of course, but it became so much for Hulk that he thought about suicide and started to overly rely on alcohol. Thankfully, he came through unscathed, but if someone as big and successful as Hulk Hogan can fall on hard times, it goes to show that anyone can. And highlighting these issues and speaking out about them would be extremely helpful during a time mental health needs as many advocates as it can get. There have been other low points for Hogan, of course, but in terms of this scenario, there may be a life lesson that could do some good overall. Number 2, the sex tape scandal. We all know about this now, and as Hogan slowly makes his way back into the WWE fold, it's exactly what is meant to fade into the distance. In case you're not aware, however, in 2012, the Hulkster was filmed having sex with Heather Clem, the wife of radio host Bubba the Love Sponge, who was also his buddy. Once footage of this was posted online by Gawker, Hulk openly admitted he was embarrassed by everything that had happened and promptly sued Bubba and Clem for invading his privacy. Shortly thereafter, Hulk turned his attentions to Gawker itself and pursued a claim for $100 million against the website for, and I quote, invasion of privacy as well as negligent and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Eventually, both parties would settle for $31 million after judges ruled in favor of Hogan. During the court case, there were some bizarre exchanges too about the differences between Hulk Hogan the character and the real-life Terry Bollea, including his penis size. But let's not get into that right now. It's too weird. Number 1, the racism. We started this video off talking about it and, of course, have to finish it that way too. But the very worst of this sex tape were the words coming out of Hulk Hogan's mouth which have no place in any part of society. It's why on the 24th of July 2015, WWE announced that they were cutting ties with him, and that was that. This was absolutely the only thing the company could have done, and even today as things seem to become amicable once more, it's a difficult situation. All I'll say is that I did a video on this for the Y series, so please check that out if you'd like more of my opinions on it. In terms of what was happening then, WWE essentially deleted Hogan from its timeline, and he was persona non grata until he was reinstated into the Hall of Fame in July 2018. It seems only a matter of time before he'll be back on Raw or SmackDown, and that in itself will be nothing short of intriguing.